President Biden, that's right, he is still technically president according to reports, is voicing some regrets about his one-term presidency. And what he regrets may surprise you. The debate, the terrible, horrible, no good, very bad debate that upended his re-election campaign is not one of them. His only regret about that, according to those close to him, is just that he didn't change the timing of it because he was under the weather and thought he could have performed better. Oh, Joe, is it the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan that he regrets? Wrong again. Not that either. His administration has admitted some mistakes in that withdrawal, but he's glad he still went through with it. What he does regret is not putting his name on the COVID relief checks sent to Americans, and that he was always referred to as the poorest person in Congress. More details in a moment, but Cenk, your reaction to just that?
Yeah, no, as Ben reads you the details, you'll see how out of touch with reality Joe Biden is right now. I mean, he's the president technically right now, but that's why you see us not responding to the drones. It's like the country's falling apart at the seams and Biden's asleep at the wheel because he just doesn't get it on anything. He thought that he could have nailed it in that debate if he just didn't have a cold. I mean, that's mental, but I'll get angrier in a second. Go ahead.
Yes, and just one quick comment there on Biden's, mental state. It's not even just in the last 6 months, it's not even in the last year. I was saying before the last election 4 years ago that he was not coherent enough to run. He was already not finishing his sentences. He was already losing his train of thought. And even when he's like somewhat lucid, he's just very confusing in the way he speaks. Like, does he think he's a stand-up comedian or something? Because every 2 words, even when talking about serious things, he thinks we think he's joking. He's always like, the crime rate is up. I'm not joking around. Nobody thinks that you're joking around. He's like, women are losing their rights in this country, folks. It's no joke, I'm being serious. I'm like, yeah.
Who thought you were being serious?
We understand you're being serious.
See, Ben, that's exactly what I said on the show countless times. He'd say, no joke, and we'd come back from the clip and I'd be like, who thought he was joking?
Yeah.
Right?
I'm not joking around.
No, seriously. And so Ben and I said the same thing, in 2020. And the reaction I got back from Democrats and the media was, you're outrageous. It's heresy. Oh, you're trying to get Bernie Sanders to win. You're going below the belt. But I'm like, guys, I've been following Joe Biden my entire career because he's been around my entire career, right? And I remember when Joe Biden was a lion. I mean, you might not agree with him, and I didn't in a lot of the things that he did, the crime bill, et cetera. But the guy was super forceful and could give a speech, right? And then he's fallen apart at the seams in 2020. Everybody's like, no, don't believe your lying eyes, et cetera. I mean, my God, 4 brutal years later, he cannot finish a sentence, and they're like, no, don't believe your lying eyes. And now all these guys from mainstream media and Democratic politics coming out and pretending that they knew all along.
Yeah.
Or, okay, wait, did you know it all along, or were you concerned all along? Because then you lied about it. Thank you for the confession.
There was a debate in 2020, in 2019, when you had like 15 other candidates up there with him, and he's given 90 seconds for an answer. He spoke for about 22 seconds, and he goes, oh, that's it. And they go, you have another minute, sir. And he goes, oh, that's all right, give the time back. Like, who on earth? You're competing against 15 folks.
Super last thing, and then we'll get back to what he just said. But in one of the debates, the one that they got mad about, the first one, they got mad at Kamala Harris for doing that story about how she was there was a little girl on a segregated bus, and we're covering it live, and I'm going, it's obviously her. It's obviously her, right? Like, it's the most obvious thing in the world. It's this giant setup, right? And when she says, and that little girl was me, the camera cuts to Biden and he goes, I'm like, how? How could you possibly be surprised by that? It was like a minute-long setup that was super obvious. Secondly, why are you doing that in the middle of a nationally televised debate? Like, that's because the old Joe Biden wouldn't have done that, right? He was already falling apart by 4 years, and not one reporter, not one mainstream media reporter broke the story of his mental decline that his staffers said they could tell as soon as he got into office in 2021.
And I would say at least he did make it up to Kamala. More on the story. Earlier this month, in remarks at the Brookings Institution in Washington, Biden spoke about his long-held belief that the key to strengthening the American economy is through bolstering the middle class, but he paused just long enough to touch on a story that he has shared countless times as a candidate and office holder. For 36 years, I was listed as the poorest man in Congress, he told the crowd with a laugh before adding, "What a foolish man." Given the atmosphere, currently the joke carried the sting of bitter truth. The billionaires are at the White House gates, ushered in by voters who were again siding with a wealthy man whose politics are antithetical to Biden's. In a month, Washington will be again led by Donald J. Trump, a man who has made no secret of his wealth or his appreciation for the wealth of others. One of his top advisors, Elon Musk, is by some counts the richest man in the world, and his first act of unelected political business this month was to try to goad congressional Republicans into a government shutdown. In the same speech, Biden said that he was stupid to not sign his name on the COVID stimulus check sent out early in his term, like Trump did with his name and signature on them after the relief bill he passed in the spring of 2020. Biden and his advisors learned a little something from Trump's tendency to scrawl his name on things. By 2023, signs touting infrastructure projects funded by President Joe Biden's bipartisan infrastructure law began popping up around the country, but those had little political impact compared with a signed check in people's pockets. People are already speculating on social media that Trump may bring stimulus checks back next year, despite the fact that he has not even implied he will do so, showing you the impact of putting your name on a check in people's hands could do. Typically had never been done to sign, but when somebody creates new norms like that and it's a political game, you're gonna battle back and forth, you gotta play by those same rules, otherwise you end up losing, so.
Yeah, so look, there's two parts to this. One is all the things he could regret and should have regretted and didn't, and his actual regrets are absurd. So that's the normal conversation you have with any president who's leaving and doesn't get it. So I love that he withdrew from Afghanistan. I appreciate that he doesn't regret the withdrawal overall, but if you don't regret the way that it was conducted, there's probably something a little off with you. Like obviously we screwed up how we exited. It doesn't take much to admit that, that's easy, right? While being super proud that we actually withdrew after 20 years. You could frame it that way. So I give you that as an example for how to talk about things that didn't go exactly right in your term so that we understand you're a normal human being and understand what went wrong, right?
People hanging off the wheels of airplanes that are in the airs. The way I had it scripted, folks, this is no joke.
Yeah, and so this whole thing of like, I should have signed the checks. No, you're missing it, man. You didn't need to do the same kind of theatrics that Trump did that were out of bounds or unprecedented, et cetera. But you did need to make your own case, which you never did. Like you needed to go out to press conferences and say, I have record low unemployment. Here's France, here's UK, here's Japan, et cetera. Look, their unemployment is higher, their inflation is higher. There's 1,000 ways you could have made that case. You could have been talking about how the infrastructure projects are coming up. You should have gone to those sites where they're doing groundbreaking and say something a little controversial. I mean, I could give you a million examples of what you should have done to make your case, let alone the fact that you should have actually tried to pass paid family leave and higher minimum wage and the public option and none of the things that you actually tried to pass. So
and he probably could have signed the checks. I mean, it would have been positive to do. Yeah. Also maybe talk less about how you finally broke Medicare. I feel like that would have probably been helpful.
I mean, and that gets to the-
Broke it, folks.
That gets to the last thing, which is more important than any of that, because that's kind of normal stuff for what you did wrong and right when you were leaving president. What you did wrong was try to run for president again when your brain was melting. That should be your #1 regret. Yeah, I mean, this lunatic, I mean, look, I feel bad calling him a lunatic because he's a mental decline. So I'll withdraw that, okay? And significant mental decline, but I do feel enraged about the people around him that kept him in that shape. He thought, well, if I had a cold, and so if I delayed the debate, then I would have done much better. No, brother, your brain is still melted. Like, I gotta stop saying, because he's really sick. Yeah, you're in mental decline, brother, but no one in your family is decent enough to tell you that. Instead, they keep pushing you out there like you're totally fine and absolutely humiliating you. Both your family and the people that you think are your friends and allies, they're doing it for money, prestige, and it's sick. They're the ones that should have massive regrets for what they did to you and encouraged your worst instincts when you're in a situation where you couldn't resist it because of your mental decline.
Even the First Lady, Jill Biden, 2 days after the debate, goes out with Joe on a public appearance and goes, didn't he do so amazing? You were amazing, Joe. Amazing? How about, you were pretty good, Joe, if you're gonna give him a compliment. Like, don't make it so implausible.
No, Jill Biden's culpability here is massive.
Massive.
And the only reason why people didn't talk about it except us before the election is because in Washington, you're not allowed to criticize the powerful. If you criticize the powerful, how dare you go after family members? It's an outrage, I tell you. Well, they're wheeling this poor son of a gun out there and he's gonna blow the whole election for us. I mean, look, at a bare minimum, last thing. If Joe Biden thought that Donald Trump is a fascist, which he said many times, and was a threat to democracy, which he said many times, shouldn't you at least regret the way that you handled the campaign so you handed the country back to him, right? I mean, at a bare minimum. If you don't regret that, apparently you never thought Trump was a real danger. You thought you were just playing ego games and you're hurt that your ego couldn't match his ego.
Or stopping fascism's important, but less important than personal ambition and getting that second term. It's important, but not as important as like, let's go and I've always wanted to be president. And so I'm gonna keep pushing at the detriment of the entire nation. That's why everyone that defended him, and even when everyone en masse started calling for Biden to step down, people were saying, I'm sticking by him, he's been there for us. Like, this isn't about team loyalty, it's about the nation, it's about the future, and look what happened. It was saddled into Kamala's lap so soon before the election. She didn't have the ability to formulate a strong campaign. She also should have been planning for this and had at least like an iPhone note in her phone with what her campaign would have been in this obvious eventuality. But I guess that's that. History is history now.
Yeah, we only said it for about a year straight though.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.